Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Chef Yusuf Show, where we learn to cook the Islamic way. Today we're making a New England clown chowder soup. This is the white, delicious, creamy soup. And the interesting thing about the soup, it will allow us to review everything we learned throughout the series. So let's go ahead, inshallah, and get started. Alright, New England clown chowder is different from the Manhattan because in Manhattan they use tomatoes, and this is the only rule in the soup, that we do not use tomato. It is the white, creamy, delicious soup. So, if you live near the ocean, if you live near the water, you have the opportunity to go fishing in the summer and dig the clam. If you are able to dig the clam, it is a wonderful ingredient to have because it couldn't get fresher than picking your own food. Wallahi, I'm serious, it is a gift that people who live near the ocean to get to pick their clam. It is a fun thing to do, and especially a fun family time. So what I have here is the actual clam already cleaned. We already steamed them, and we learned in the fish episode that, you know, to open the clam, we only cook it with a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. It will open, and we'll open that broth, that water, that flavorful water is what we're gonna use today. This we saved, and we're gonna use it for the clam. We call it clam juice. And the meat itself, you can go ahead and chop it. If you have rough and big chunks of muscle, you can go ahead and chop them. The lean one, you can use them as well. Now, the other thing is, if you do not live near the water, you always can use one of these cans, chopped sea clams. You know, you can buy this, and you also can enjoy the wonderful recipe. One of the things that interests me about this recipe, I'm gonna go ahead and do it the classical style as much as I can, that they use bacon, right? And I wanted to show, although I don't like to cook, I don't like to mix the meat, the farm animals with the fish animals, but I decided to go ahead and use it because it is classical, because it talks about bacon. And bacon, you know, it's like when you tell a Muslim halal bacon, it's like kinda, it doesn't make sense, as if you're saying halal pork, you know, because bacon is actually a flavor, and it is not a ham product. It is not a pig product. That's what I'm saying. So get yourself one of the halal bacon flavors, maybe the beef, the turkey, whatever, and, you know, go ahead and chop them. Okay, after you chop them, go ahead and add some flame. After we have some flame, what we will do is we'll go ahead and cook the fat out of the bacon, and this will give us our oil. You know, if you need more oil, you would have an olive oil in hand. We'll keep that at the side, and we'll see how much oil is extracted from the meat or from the bacon. Now, as I said, you know, the halal bacon, it is something that is a flavor. It is not the pork product itself. A lot of people get it confused. I just want to make it clear that bacon is a flavor, and it is not a pig product. Alright, after cooking the bacon a little, we have our classic mary poire, but this time we are not using carrots. Remember, mary poire is a combination of equal amount of celery, carrots with twice the amount of onion. We have our onion, we have our celery, but instead of carrots, I'm using corn. The reason for this is because the red carrots, it tends to give it color. So we'll go ahead and use corn instead, and corn will substitute the sweetness of the carrot. Everyone has a unique characteristic. Onions are savory, celery are salty, and in this case, corn is the sweet substance. So go ahead and add it. And as I mentioned, we're gonna learn some of the things we learned throughout these episodes. We learned the concept of mary poire, and every time when we make broth or sauce, it is used. It is a French invention of taste that will come together. Also, we learned the concept of roux. Making roux is what will thicken the sauce. It will thicken any sauce. And to make the roux, you combine equal amounts of fat with equal amounts of starch. Over here, I have some starch, I have flour. And in this case, I did not start with butter because now we are advanced. We are using the fat of the bacon itself to mix it with the starch. So you're gonna use your eye here. If the fat is not extracted from the bacon, or if you have a little bacon, as I had a little bit of bacon. So when you add the flour, keep an eye and see if it will, if the fat is dried out and you actually basically need to add more fat. So keep an eye on this. If you don't see any fat, if the flour is taking over the everything, so this is where we're gonna add additional olive oil. So we have our olive oil in hand, and we'll add some olive oil. This will balance the mixture of roux, mixture of flour and the fat. So you add it as much as you need it, and you want to cook the roux, you want to cook the flour to remove the strange starchy flavor that you have when you mix flour with your soup. Now, is that a rule? No, it's not. Actually, a lot of recipes that you find, you'll see people adding the flour on top of the soup and then allow it to thicken this way. So that is also, it is really up to your taste profile, right? So taste is not something that we can measure, it's up to you. All right, so what do we do when we make roux? We add oil, we add some starch, and we shock it with some cold liquid. In this case, we have the clam juice, Okay, and as the longer it simmers, the longer it gets thicker. We have some potatoes here. They will go ahead and add the potatoes after. Now here is the quiz question for you guys. Now, we learned in previous episodes that adding the potato or the starch of the vegetable when we made vegetable soup, that the vegetable itself can thicken the soup. So why did we add the potato and we made the roux? Is it possible to bypass the roux? So basically we didn't make the roux, we just add the potato? Yes, of course, and the potato will use its starch to thicken the sauce, and this is actually the classical recipe, the authentic recipe. They do not use flour, instead they use potato and oyster crackers. This is the same concept of crushing the bread on top of the soup. It's used to call THAREED back in Arabia. And the Prophet ﷺ favored that meal over other meals, as mentioned in the hadith. So this is how we are learning how to cook. Now the potato and the roux, both of them are thickening agent. The corn itself is a thickening agent, so everything will start to thicken. Now we'll put our flavor herbs. So we have some flavor herbs, some bay leaf, some thyme, some maybe some cilantro, some parsley. So some parsley, some cilantro, some thyme. We'll add it, and we'll add any of our red peppers, any spices we like. We have cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper is the heavier or the spicier one. If you have crushed peppers, of course you can put that, whatever, as much as you're, as much as you want it to be spicy. Why didn't we add the clam yet? Remember in our previous episode we learned that cooking fish, you don't want to overcook fish because it will become more dry, it will extract the flavors out. This is why we're not cooking the oysters. We'll put the oysters in the end when the soup is almost done. And technically when it boils, when it starts to thicken, this is where our soup is almost done. So we'll go ahead and season it with some salt and pepper at this point. And even we should have done that before when we were frying the base vegetables. And the pepper itself, I like to use white pepper because of the white color of the soup itself. I tend to like to use, for the creamy sauce. I don't want to spoil the creaminess of the sauce as much as I can, so I add white pepper. Let this simmer really slowly. This is a slow cooking soup that we want to allow it to cook and extract all of the flavors. Now, these are the basics, the real basics. Corn is even actually optional at this point. I didn't have to add the corn, but if you have frozen vegetables in your freezer, one of these bags, you can add those as well. Allow them to cook, let them simmer. And I want to say that adding cream, if you add the cream, you do have to use the soup before it goes bad. If you don't have the dairy product, it will last you weeks and weeks. And this is very useful if you make a lot of quantities, if you have a restaurant, or if you just cook for a lot of people as a professional cook. So the good thing to do to make the soup taste better is to go to your local farm and get the cream and get the dairy products. It's more fresher, and the way they pasteurize, it could be different. It will make a difference. I do have some organic over here, but if you can't find this or if you can't afford it, just make sure it is as local as you can. I don't know about raw milk or raw cream. That is something interesting to use. I don't know. I think in the States they're illegal using raw milk, but it is interesting to see how they taste like. They're going to be richer, and just interesting to see if we can cook with these products in the future. Anyways, we'll allow this to cook and allow the the starches to escape from the potato and the corn. How do we know when it's done? We know when it's done when the potatoes are soft, a little bit soft. You don't want to make it as a smashed potato, right? Don't mash it, don't overcook it. Make sure they are thick enough. And if you would like to have it thicker, just allow it to simmer, allow it to boil. Add some more roux if you like. On the side, you can add it if you want. Technically, we are done here. We'll just add some of the oysters at the end. I just want this to simmer even slower. All right, they are already chopped oysters, so I'm not worried about it. Let them cook, but do not overcook them. We learned this in the fish episode, in the fish soup episode. If you overcook them, what will happen? It will tend to get more, like a rubbery, and the moisture will extract from the fish and from the mussel, and it will become more dry and more tasteless. But you'll have a wonderful soup. So you know what I'm saying. Okay, so what are the common mistakes that people make? Number one common mistake is people add water. Water is the flavorless liquid on the universe. I think in the universe, I'm not sure, but in the world, at least in this earth, it is the flavor. Why would you want to use water? Use the clam juice that you use to open the clams. The other mistake that some people do is they add 10 tablespoons of flour after a while it's boiling. You add it, it's almost like a dough. So if you add 10 tablespoons of flour, you're crazy. And others like to make the Manhattan type of soup, which will basically, the only difference is instead of adding the cream, we'll go ahead and add tomatoes. We will skip on the roux. So if you add tomatoes, you'll add the clam. We'll add, if you want, some potatoes and all of the vegetables that you require. And this will become the Manhattan, clam chowder soup, which is a little bit different. Which is the tomato is the only illegal thing in this soup right now, and the opposite thing is you don't add cream to the Manhattan soup. I don't want to get anyone confused. So we'll allow this to simmer for a few moments, and I'll show you how it will look before we add the cream. So stay with us. We'll be back in a few minutes. Salam alaikum. Okay, assalamu alaikum and welcome back. So this is, as you can see, soup is getting thicker. Now I did mention that using a roux with the potatoes and the corn, it will get it more starchy and more creamy, right? If you want to do it the traditional way. Now I looked this up in Wikipedia. I'm not sure if this is right, so you guys can correct me, that in the authentic way they don't add the roux, they will use just the potato. If you decide to do that, go heavy on the potato. As you can see, I went light on the potato and I had some roux. So this will have a really nice creamy soup. If you bypass the roux, you're going to have more potatoes to allow the starch to escape and thicken the soup. At this point, let's go ahead and remove some of our herbs that we added, like the bay leaf. Let's go ahead and remove this, and just want to mention this again, that this is your base soup. Put half of this, store half of this in the refrigerator. It will last weeks. As soon as you put the cream, it will become something that is dairy, that will have to consume real quick, a few days maybe, or it will go bad. Now add as much cream as creamiest as you wish. The temperature of the soup is going to go down as well. The more you add, the creamier it will be. Whoa, look at this. There is one more bay leaf. Oh, this. And again, if it's too runny, go ahead and make additional roux, add the roux with it. It could be like a bechamel, using the same sauce, it will become like a bechamel sauce. You add it, it will thicken. If you like to try the taste of the raw flour on top of this, you can add as well. But this is my version of clown chowder soup, New England style. This will conclude our fish recipe. If we do have more time, we'll go ahead and make the Manhattan style, but really technically instead of using the cream, instead of using the roux, we'll add tomatoes, and it will become a clearer reddish soup that you enjoy, which is a little bit different in style, different in taste. Okay, as we simmer more and more, as you can see, the soup is getting thicker and thicker. Let's go ahead and turn the heat off. This is too thick. I think it's nice thickness it has. So let's go ahead and plate this. Get yourself a bowl. I like to use the darker bowls for the white sauce soups. There you go, and we'll go ahead and use the clear bowl as well so you can see. So you can see through the bowl. Let's go ahead and do a close-up of this. Clown chowder soup, New England style. Okay, so as you can see, the longer it simmers, the thicker it will get. The starches from the potatoes, from the corn, from the roux itself, they start to activate, and the longer you simmer, the thicker it will get. But remember that the potato, you don't want to overcook it too much, so it will become like a mashed potato. You want to make it like a fork, that you can poke it with a fork, I guess, a little bit firm. Okay. The other thing we learned here is using cream. Using cream will give it a distinct flavor, but it is something that is, a lot of people are worried about their weight. So if you want to use like whole milk or maybe half and half, you can do that as well. Now, another thing that the restaurants do, that they will go ahead and have a big roll of bread that will carve inside, and they will add the soup with the bread itself. This is also beautiful, and this is one of the THAREED classical recipes. THAREED is the method of crushing the bread on top of the soup itself. This is used to be used back in Arabia, like a few thousand years ago. It was very common, and it was the favorite dish of the Prophet ﷺ. So how does New England style clown chowder relates to that is because New England clown chowder is classically eaten with oyster crackers. So you go ahead and crush some oyster cracker on top of this. So this is the THAREED New England style. Okay, so what did we learn? There's a lot of things we are learning, and I might be going, you might have to refer to these few episodes to catch up on what we are doing. In this month, the holy month of Ramadan, we decided to talk about the topic of soup because it is mentioned that it is a favorite dish of the Prophet ﷺ. So we wanted to discover all types of soup and the foundation of making a soup. So if you do have to refer to the first or second episode to learn how to make the stock, we learned about how to make thickening agent, different thickening agents. We learned to puree the vegetable is one way to thicken the agent, to use the roux, to use the vegetable itself. And today we kind of went and reviewed the things that we learned about. We combined something from the roux episode, something with the fish episode, and we know the rules. We know the rules of Mary Poire. We know the rules of making it taste the way you like it. The bacon in the beginning, as I said, if you like to have the animal farm animals in the animal soup, if you like to have the fish soup, you can't bypass the bacon. You can use something else. You can use just the fat of the butter or maybe olive oil. And we learned that adding flour while cooking the Mary Poire also works. So this is another technique. Adding flour, it will give it a unique taste. A lot of people don't like it, especially in the restaurant. They prefer to use the roux method. Okay, so give it a try. Make sure you say Bismillah before you eat. And we hope you enjoyed our today's episode. We'll talk to you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan.